So the first time that I went outdoor bouldering, I climbed nothing. The person that I was going with at the time didn't really have a crash pad, and they left me to spot them at the bottom of a boulder that they were climbing with their approach shoes. So needless to say, I didn't have quite the experience that I wanted on my first outdoor bouldering trip, but I did remember leaving this trip with 3 thoughts. Outdoor bouldering was definitely not for me. Rocks are pretty dang sharp, and I really wish that I had packed a Subway sandwich. I was super unprepared for my first trip, and more importantly, I was discouraged from outdoor climbing due to my lack of preparation. A few months later, a group of experienced outdoor boulderers took me outside for the first time, and I had a really positive experience with them. They taught me how to find a boulder, identify a top out, and how to spot. But more importantly, they gave me snacks. Fast forward a few years later, I go outdoors every single weekend now, and have made outdoor bouldering my primary focus as a climber. I understand how daunting it can be to get started in your outdoor bouldering journey, so I've compiled this video to adequately prepare you all to begin your own outdoor bouldering journeys. From my personal experience outdoor bouldering and from conversations that I've had with experienced outdoor boulderers, sprinkled in with a little bit of research, I have hypothesized that new boulderers will need to know 7 specific skills before they start their outdoor bouldering journey. You will need to know how to find a boulder, place crash pads properly, interpret rock quality and safety, spot a climber, safely bail from a climb, respond to an emergency situation, and lastly, practice climbing outdoor ethics. And with that, let's get started. Skill number 1. Find a boulder. So believe it or not, outdoor boulders do not have a sign that says climb me. You actually gotta find them. If you, like me, are geographically challenged, the idea of interpreting topographic maps in order to find a boulder isn't really the most interesting thing in the world. But luckily, we live in an age where Mountain Project exists and guidebooks exist. My saving graces. There are 3 ways to find a boulder. You can use the Mountain Project website, you can use the Mountain Project app, or you can use a guidebook. Mountain Project is offered as both an app and website that serves as a guidebook for nearly 300,000 climbs across the world. It provides useful information on how to find a boulder, pictures of what the boulder looks like, and also beta of how to climb it. I will be walking you through how to use the website, but if you personally know how to find a boulder and navigate Mountain Project, feel free to skip ahead to a different section of this video that would best serve you. Let's go over how to use the Mountain Project website. To use it, you will first need to go to mountainproject.com. The next thing we will be doing is searching for climbs in your area. Using the search bar, type in the area you're looking for. For example, I've been climbing in Tramway a lot recently, so if I'm searching for information about climbs in that area, I can use the search bar and type Tramway. You might notice that there's a climb in New Hampshire named Tramway, but I am specifically searching for climbs in the Tramway area rather than the climb named Tramway. To find climbs in your intended area, click on the word areas. On the first page, you might observe that Mountain Project already provided loads of key information about Tramway, such as the cost of an adult ticket plus parking information, the requirement to fill out a backcountry permit at the ranger station, and also some classic climbs in the area. In the section Classic Climbing Routes at the Tramway, you can pick a climb that you're interested in. For example, if I wanted to know more about the line swing dance, I could click on the title and it will take me to a page that provides information on how tall the boulder is, who completed the first ascent, a picture or description of where the line starts, and also beta for the climb. Okay, for all of you beginning outdoor boulders, please do keep in mind that grades outdoors are severely sandbagged compared to indoor climbs. From my own experience attending a route setting clinic, I've learned that this discrepancy in grade is because indoor climbing gyms are essentially businesses. And as a business, they want to be able to engage new climbers to come into their gym and also purchase memberships. If I'm someone that's new to indoor bouldering and I'm falling off of all the V0s and all the V1s in the gym, I probably wouldn't want to keep trying climbing anymore because it can be very discouraging. As a result, indoor gyms tend to be softer than outdoor climbs because they want new climbers to purchase memberships and also engage in the sport. I'm definitely not ashamed to admit that even now I still fall off of V0s and V1s outdoors. So I would recommend choosing a handful of outdoor climbs that are lower than your indoor grade. And you can always work your way up from there. The Mountain Project app has essentially all the same features as the website except for my favorite feature, which has changed the game of indoor bouldering for me, and that is the GPS feature. So say that I'm hiking in Tramway and I have no idea where I am anymore. On the Mountain Project app, there's a feature called Near Me that allows climbers to, as the name indicates, find boulders that are near them. This feature is pretty cool because it allows climbers to find a boulder even if they don't have any cellular service. The only downside is that because you don't have cellular service, the pictures of the boulders that normally would be available on the Mountain Project website and the Mountain Project app won't be available for viewing anymore. Just a plain old description. The last option that I will be going over today to find a boulder is a guidebook, which is essentially a traditional physical copy of Mountain Project. Since most guidebooks are written by local climbers and local guides of a specific area, I find that there's greater attention to detail and also higher quality pictures when I am using a guidebook. Something else that distinguishes guidebooks from mountain projects is that it will provide more in-depth community ethics about a specific area. For example, in the Joshua Tree guidebook, it specifies that climbers are not allowed to touch any type of art that exists on the rock in order to preserve the history of that community. Personally, I have a greater preference for guidebooks because of the attention to the descriptions and also the detail of the photos in the guidebook. However, I do utilize all three of these resources in order to find a boulder, to scope out the boulders that I do want to climb. Skill number 2, place crash pads properly. So I reached out to my friend and also my climbing coach Britt for her expertise regarding this topic. So much gratitude for her for supporting me and informing this section of the video. When you are bouldering outdoors, you will be using a crash pad, aka these big rectangle things that climbers have and wear on the back. Climbers will generally share their pads with each other to create greater coverage, and this is colloquially known as a pad party. Intuitively, one might want to just throw a crash pad under their climbing friend and call it a day, because obviously their friend is going to land perfectly and directly on the crash pad, right? Absolutely not. There are 3 key points that all new beginning outdoor boulderers will need to know about pad placement outdoors. First, you have to understand your fall zone. A fall zone is an area where a climber has any possibility of falling, and this area requires greater coverage from crash pads. Determining a fall zone is something that even veteran outdoor boulderers still have a challenging time with, because there are several factors that impact where a climber is going to fall, such as the steepness of the wall, the slope of the ground, and also the type of movement that the climber is performing. Before you even begin climbing, take time to evaluate your fall zone. Some questions that I will ask myself before laying out pads are: how can I position my pad so that my climber will fall directly on it? Are there any gaps in the pad that may cause my ankle to get caught while I fall? Are there any big or dynamic moves that will put me at risk of falling outside of the padded zone? The second thing that you'll need to be mindful about is the gaps between your crash pads. Unlike indoor bouldering gyms, which have very uniform pad placement, the gaps between crash pads pose a risk. I've seen climbers land on the seam of their crash pad, and when they land, they essentially push the crash pads apart and hurt their ankles. Some people will cover this seam between crash pads with something known as a blubber or a sit pad, but the best way to prevent ankle injuries is to center your pad so that the fall zone is directly at the center of the pad, rather than the seams between the pads or the edges of the crash pad. The last point that you will need to know about pad placement is that when you're outdoors, you can't expect a perfect, nice, flat landing. Rocks, tree roots, hills, and basically nature can create obstructions within the fall zone. Sometimes climbers will put a pad over these protruding features and call it fine and good to go. And this is actually a very tricky scenario because ideally you would be able to stack the pads in a way that would fully cover these protrusions and prevent the climber from shifting the pad. But unfortunately, that's just not how it always goes. So some creative solutions that I've seen climbers use to work around these obstructions is to either have multiple spotters in that specific area while other climbers are holding the crash pad over the protrusion to prevent it from shifting. With time, experience, and also observing what veteran outdoor climbers will do, you will also learn to come up with your own creative solutions in order to be safe. I feel like an understanding of pad placement is extremely underrated. So I would encourage you all to take the time to be mindful and really learn this skill well, because it's gonna serve you in your lifelong journey of outdoor bouldering. Skill number 3, interpret rock quality and safety. So as you probably know from your science classes in middle and high school, not all rocks are made the same, and the 3 most common types of rocks that you will climb on outdoors is gonna likely be granite, sandstone, or limestone. Granite can be found in places like Yosemite Valley and also Joshua Tree. Granite is my personal favorite type of rock to climb on because of how sturdy and also how sharp it is. However, it can be quite abrasive on the skin, and it takes a bit of time to build resiliency to it. Granite can also be climbed on while it is raining or while the rock is wet. Sandstone can be found in places like Stony Point, Moab, Red Rocks, and Zion. Sandstone is much softer than granite and can also easily erode. However, unlike granite, you cannot climb on sandstone when it has rained or while the rock is wet because the rock is prone to breakage even days after it rains. There are community ethics about how long to wait before it's okay to climb on sandstone again, so check in with your local climbing community at your gym or on social media to see if it is okay to climb on sandstone. Limestone can be found in places like Rifle or Mount Charleston. I personally have not climbed on this type of rock before, but have read that limestone can become extremely slippery and polished when it has been rained on. Similar to sandstone, it's recommended to wait a few days after it rains before climbing on limestone. Before heading outside, you will need to determine what rock type you will be climbing on and also be aware of whether or not it has rained recently. You might also notice that outdoors, boulders are actually marked. The most common type of mark that I've seen outside is just these little tick marks that climbers will use to direct where to put their feet or where to put their hands. It is generally good ethics to erase tick marks after you've created them in order to preserve the experience for other climbers that may not have ever seen this boulder before and want to have their own experience discovering their own beta for that boulder. Another mark that you might see outside is an X, which indicates that a hold is hollow and is likely to break. These X's are kind of like a climber's way to warn each other that you should not climb on the rock or that the rock is flexing and about to break soon. One way to determine whether or not a hold is hollow is actually to knock on it.
Hollow hold.
And it should make a very distinctive knocking sound, almost like you're knocking on a door or on wood. Skill number 4, safely spotting. John Sherman once said that spotting is not a chore, it's a sacred trust. Spotting is the practice of protecting a climber while they're falling by redirecting them onto a crash pad safely. My friend Kevin is basically the best spotter that you could ever ask for. Every time I climb and Kevin spots me, I know that he has my back. And that type of security is something that I think we all deserve and should also extend to our climbing partners and friends. I did reach out to Kevin to learn about how he became such a fantastic spotter, and the tips that I'm outlining in this section come from his knowledge and also expertise. Spotting tip number 1, be prepared for when your climber falls. No matter how strong or how capable your climber is, always be prepared for them to fall because foot slips happen and also rock breaks happen. Spotting tip number 2, keep your fingers together together when you're spotting, similar to a spoon. If your fingers are spread out, it can be really easy for someone to just land awkwardly on your hands and injure or possibly break them. And as a climber, we know how important it is to have healthy fingers in our sport. So just keep them in cute little spoons and you'll be all good to go. Spotting tip number 3, aim to redirect your friend onto the crash pad by using the hip. Most times when people fall, their hips are a great indicator of where they're going to fall. So make sure you're paying attention to their hips in order to catch them or guide them onto the crash pad. Spotting tip number 4, spotting is not static. So unless you're stronger and bigger and a lot heavier than the climber that you're spotting, aim to guide or cushion the fall of your climber by utilizing their hips. This looks a lot like dropping low with your climber, almost like you're squatting down with them as soon as you make contact with their hips and as they're falling. Spotting tip number 5. Lastly, communication between your spotter and your climber is key. So as a climber and a spotter, it is both your responsibility and commitment to communicate what you need from each other. So some people prefer to have their pads double stacked. Some people prefer to hear words of affirmation on the wall, such as "you got this" or "I got you." And some people actually prefer not to have a spotter at all because they're very comfortable reorienting themselves, or they feel like they might land dangerously onto their spotter. One of the most important jobs that a spotter has is shifting the pad or moving the pad as the climber is making their way through their climb. Just make sure to quickly check in with your climber and ask them where they want the pads to be, because they likely have an idea of where they think that they might fall. I would highly recommend checking out the article Bouldering Skills: The Art of Spotting by Jane Jackson, which provides a deeper view into how to spot. Skill number 5, safely bail from a climb. So most climbers are taught when they fall in the gym the tuck and roll technique, which is ideal in an indoor setting where there's ample padding. However, your spotting technique might actually look a little bit different outdoors, especially if you do not have enough pads to safely roll on your back. So here are some general rules of thumb when you are falling outdoors. First, when you begin falling, make sure that you look down at the crash pad to examine where you will be falling. If you have the opportunity, let your spotters know as soon as possible when you're falling in order for them to prepare themselves. If possible, land on your feet first and allow your body to crumple either onto your butt or your back if it is safe. And 4, to ensure that you're not injuring your hands or your wrists, it's best to stabilize yourself by utilizing your forearms and your elbows. You want your body's greatest surface area, like your back, to absorb most of the impact. Also, make sure you tuck your limbs in to avoid greater injury. If you are a little bit nervous about falling outdoors, I would check in with an experienced boulderer and outdoor climbing coach. I would also recommend reading the article Spare Those Ankles: How to Boulder Safely by Nina Williams in order to gain better insight on how to fall safely outdoors. Skill number 6. Respond to an emergency situation. On all of your outdoor bouldering trips, make sure you understand how to respond to an emergency situation in the instance where you or another climber gets injured. It is crucial to stay calm and follow these general guidelines. First, assess the situation. Quickly evaluate the severity of the emergency and determine whether or not it's a medical emergency, a climbing related incident, or another type of danger. Communicate for help. If it's possible, make sure that you use a phone to contact emergency services or send someone to contact emergency services. If you do not have any cellular service, send an individual to find reception or a nearby ranger. Provide clear and concise information about your location, the nature of the emergency, and also the number of people involved. Ensure personal safety. You need to prioritize your safety and the safety of others first. If there's any immediate risk of falling rocks or an unstable rock formation, move to a safe location and also away from the danger. Request assistance from climbers nearby. They might have first aid training or be experienced in dealing with outdoor climbing related injuries. Collaborative efforts can just improve the overall response to the situation. Wait for professional help. So depending on the severity of the emergency, it might be best to just wait for professional rescuers to arrive. However, I have been in situations where my friends would have to move a climber in order for them to gain the help that they needed. Make sure to follow any of the instructions that are given by emergency services and also to provide updates about the situation. Prevent further accidents. So take precautions to prevent additional injuries and also additional accidents. This can be done by warning climbers of the potential hazard or encouraging them to stay away from a specific area where the hazard occurred.
Go away.
It's a good thing we're climbers and not actors.
Remember that these guidelines are general and every situation is contextual. It's crucial to use your best judgment in these emergency situations, and having proper training in wilderness first aid, CPR, basic climbing rescue techniques is always going to be a plus to prepare for emergencies outdoors. Skill number 7, practice climbing and outdoor ethics. So I completely get that this portion of video can come off as a little bit preachy, and everyone can vary in their interpretations of what's considered good outdoor or good climbing ethics. So I'll just go over some general principles that you can be aware of. Principle number 1. Leave no trace. This includes packing out all trash, minimizing campfire impact, respecting wildlife, and leaving cultural and natural features undisturbed. It can be a little bit unsettling and frustrating to see climbers leave their energy drinks, water bottles, snack wrappers, and other knickknacks at the crag, so please make sure to bring an extra garbage bag in order to pack your stuff out. Second, stay on designated trails. Stick to established trails and avoid creating new ones in order to prevent erosion and also damaging the existing ecosystem. Walking off trail can unfortunately disturb wildlife and vegetation. In the case where you do find yourself unable to stay on the trail or drifting away from the trail, choose a path back that prevents you from severely impacting the wildlife or the vegetation. Third, be considerate of other climbers and visitors by minimizing your noise. I'm definitely not saying that you need to whisper or stick with your indoor voices, but I have spoken with some friends regarding this topic, and they have shared that excessive shouting or really loud music can be quite disturbing when they're climbing. If you do choose to play music, I would encourage you to bring your own set of headphones, because climbers in the area might not share your taste in music, or music might just be generally distracting for them. I myself don't personally like listening to music when I am climbing outdoors, and respecting other people's preferences is just the kind thing to do. Obtain necessary permits. Some climbing areas such as tramway require you to obtain a permit before you boulder. Mountain Project is a good place to start if you're unsure of whether or not you need a permit for a specific area. Support conservation efforts. Lastly, if you do have some time and also the capacity to do this, a great way to be an active protector of our outdoor spaces is to participate in any cleanups or any conservation efforts that might exist. When I first started indoor climbing, I would have never imagined that I would grow to love outdoor climbing so much. I was a die-hard indoor bouldering girly. I think there's something really special about climbing outdoors because you can be so present with nature and our earth. If you are starting your outdoor bouldering adventure for the first time, please make sure to go with an experienced outdoor boulderer, and let me emphasize experienced outdoor boulderer, not just your friends who are also new to outdoor bouldering. Just as indoor climbing is rooted in community and community knowledge, outdoor bouldering also requires you to learn from others. I'm not saying it's impossible to just learn these skills on your own or do your own reading and research, but I advocate for your own safety to seek out this knowledge from others who have done this before and have navigated the learning curve of outdoor bouldering. I hope that you've all gained some valuable pieces of knowledge from this video, and I'm really excited to see how you all are doing in your own outdoor bouldering journeys. I would love to keep up with how you all are doing outside, so please make sure to tag me at boulder.fatty, which is my IG handle, and I'll make sure to hype you up in the comments section. A reminder to stay extra safe outdoors and be kind to your mind, and I'll see you in the next video. Colloquially, I cannot say that word.